Welcome to the Soul Deep Podcast with Jessica Janty. Join me as we dive deep into raw, real, in-depth conversations about life, love, relationships, sexuality, spirituality, what it is we're really here for, and anything in between. I want this to feel like a safe space for anyone on a spiritual journey, trying to find answers in your truth by having open heart and open-minded conversations. And my hope for you as a listener is that you feel this is a safe space here, a place to hear things from a different perspective that may challenge you and your thinking in the best way possible, allowing you to give grace to how you've been raised or what you've been taught or told to believe. And perhaps you find your truth as I search for mine on this journey we call life. So grab your favorite drink, cozy on up to your couch or wherever you listen from, and join me for these soul deep conversations. All right. Hello. Welcome back to the podcast. So today I have with me Sara and Stacy, and we joined the Nurse Coach Collective. Actually, we were in the same cohort. And so it's been wonderful being on this journey and seeing them, growing with them, just seeing them online and what they are doing. So I'm really excited to have you guys here today. So thanks for joining. So before we get too far, I love to start every episode with some breath. I actually love to start every coaching session, anything I do with breath, because I feel like it's so important. So if you are comfortable closing down your eyes and grounding in, and if you, for those of you who are at home, if you are driving, obviously don't close down your eyes, but if you can join with us, we'll just take some slow, easy breaths in through the nose and out through our mouth, or whatever breath pattern feels good for you, but just slowing down our breath. And really allowing yourself just to land here in this moment. Letting go of anything from earlier today, maybe a scattered, chaotic place that you might find yourself in. Letting go of any to-do list for later today. Just allowing yourself to be here. Just taking this power of the pause where we ground in with our breath. Our breath is so life-giving. We literally cannot live without it. We often take it for granted. And when we give ourselves this time and this space to be with our breath, to be with our body, we can hear maybe little subtle cues that our body is giving us that we might not otherwise hear. And so just being with our breath, the inhale and the exhale. And we'll just take a couple more breaths here together. One more big, deep inhale in. And with our exhale, just do an audible exhale if you feel comfortable. Just letting that go. And just coming back to the space whenever you're ready. Thank you for joining me in that.
Yeah, thank you. It's refreshing.
I know. I just love it. It's also for me a lot of times too, because I feel like sometimes we come into spaces too with a little scattered energy and things. It just really helps to just bring you into the present moment. So, yes. Well, like I said, thank you so much for being here. And I love to chat about what we are drinking, because it's like we are sitting having a cozy conversation. And I love your mugs. You were telling me a little bit before we started. So let's see your fun mugs.
Wait, this is how they stack? Oh, yeah.
Okay, little cactus.
Yeah. We bought them in Arizona. Yeah. We're suckers for gift shops. So.
Yeah.
Most of the mugs. Yeah.
Awesome. What are you guys drinking today?
Okay, so I'm drinking a Moroccan mint tea, green tea from Trader Joe's. And I also am, except I made it into a latte. So I added some like a tea latte. Like a tea latte. Yeah. Yeah. What are you drinking?
I am drinking a dandy blend. So it is like a tea-based blend. It is similar to a flavor of coffee. It's got like a bitterness like coffee does.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But then it doesn't have caffeine. So I don't
Yeah.
it's a really great like coffee alternative.
Love that.
Love it.
Put anything in it?
I do put a little bit of it's an oat milk creamer.
Okay.
Like a little splash of that. And then sometimes I'll put cinnamon and turmeric in it. Sometimes I'll put a little bit of cacao. Today I just want traditional, just the sandy blend. Yeah.
Right. Okay, something to add to my list.
All right. So like I was saying before, we've known each other, what it's probably been, gosh, has it been like 2.5 years or something?
Was it 2021? Actually, it's more because
like when
you guys were partners.
Yeah, we were peer partners. Yeah.
Gosh, so 3 years.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Because we graduated the Nurse Coach Collective in January of 2022. So it's already 2.5 years from then. And I think we started, it was like summer of 2021, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like 3 years.
Yeah, that's right. I think because I started it actually before I quit my job. And then I quit my job while I was in the collective.
And I was like,
yeah, crazy times. So you guys, I love your backstory because you are not just sisters, but you're twins.
Yes.
And you've literally done a lot of things together as far as like how your careers have gone. So can you tell us a little bit? Well, first, if you want to just tell us about yourself, all that too. So.
Okay. Do you want to go? Well, I guess we could start where our stories are like mostly together, and then we have a point where we separated. So
besties since the day we were born.
Yeah. And you know, it's funny because actually when we go back and think about, you know, some inner child stuff, which I don't know if we'll get into or not.
Yeah.
There was this portion of our early life, like where we were, you know, in kindergarten and, you know, we're trying to like do our work together and stuff. And then
Stacy was always trying to help me.
And then they separated us after kindergarten, which they do with a lot of twins.
Yeah.
And so
we weren't allowed to take classes again together until like
high school. So like, I just add that because I think it's like something I'm kind of discovering was important for like how we were shaped and stuff, because it's easy to think maybe like our whole entire lives, everything we did was the same together. But actually there was a big chunk when we were children where it was separate. And then really when we decided to go into the operating room and then into nursing, it was kind of something we weren't real sure about and you know, made this leap and
you're like, well, this is just gonna work because it has to.
And then it was after almost, well, I guess 10 years in the operating room, but we, you know, not 10 years quite of nursing was when we discovered nurse coaching. And we were both like, okay, I don't know what this is, but this is going to change our life.
Because like, again, just to backtrack, like we never wanted to be nurses. It was just kind of like, we just kind of ended up in healthcare because like our dad basically like, he always said, I'll pay for 4 years of college. And there's a limit to like what college you can go to. Obviously it wasn't just like anything. So after like 2 years of taking prereqs, we're like, okay, like we just need to pick something like now that we're going to be done with in 2 years and that we know we're going to get a job. So we like applied to a bunch of medical tech programs and got into all of them, but the surgical technology didn't have a waiting list. So we're like, great, like that's what we're doing, you know?
So it was like very opportunistic and like we didn't like it at first. And then we ended up staying in the OR for like over 10 years.
And like, I have always been like a very creative person. So like, I thought I really wanted to go into like fashion design. And then I thought, well, maybe graphic design. And like, we always thought Stacy would be a teacher because she's amazing at teaching. But then we're like, okay, we have 2 years. Like, again, we just need to like pick something that we can for sure finish in 2 years, basically be guaranteed a job when we graduate. And where we live in Cleveland, or where Stacy used to live in Cleveland, there's a lot of hospital systems here. There's like, like 3 or 4 major hospital systems. So we're like, you're basically guaranteed like a job when you finish. So that's how we got into the medical field.
But it was all very like practical, you know, we, the one thing that I think is important to our story as well is that we're here making all these like practical decisions that quote unquote made sense. But in between that, like in our whole 20s and like into now in our 30s, traveling was a huge thing for us. And it was, what I say is really our first almost kind of foray into personal growth and development, because that was what always reminded us that things could be different than this immediate day-to-day life, which honestly sometimes felt very much like on autopilot. So when we started our coaching program and started learning about mindset and how these things are changeable and this idea of possibility, you know, like we had this whole other part of our life to pull from, to show that we had all this proof, like, you know what, not everybody is a nurse and they can still make a living, or not everybody lives in Cleveland, Ohio. And guess what, you know, like, and I was always, I think we both were just fascinated by this idea that you could be in another place and have a totally different life if you wanted. And so we would come, you know, we always didn't want to come back to work.
I think like after one trip, we were literally like crying on the way to work because we're like, oh, you don't want to do this anymore, you know?
So we were but that very much like was our kind of like our North Star light at the end of the tunnel type thing, that we were like, at some point we will change this.
We thought we would be like travel influencers at one point, and that hasn't happened yet, but maybe one day we'll niche into that.
But you know, then when we discovered nurse coaching and realized, you know, like the opportunities for entrepreneurship and things that you can do differently with that, like that was something we dove in together.
And that was at a point too where like, okay, it was like during COVID, everybody was like burned out, and we especially like were going through like a big, I think we had actually really been burned out for like a while,
probably quite a while,
but that was like really when we hit that wall and we're like, okay, like something needs to change. And then that's when we like found it.
That's when we found it. And you know, like we had this whole personal transformation ourselves. And then early 2022 when we finished you know, getting our board certification and started our business, we were like, okay, like this is the direction, you know, we're going now. And so this part of our story is like, we've been very much together and figuring out everything on, like, you know, as twins. And, you know, then about, I guess it was, you know, not long after, like about 6 to 9 months later, I found myself in what felt like a miracle of a transatlantic relationship.
I really say that it's like this to me, because if I never would have gotten COVID, then we never would have gotten stuck in France, and Stacy never would have met her husband. So, so thank you, COVID.
So this was in summer of 2022. Was when this began, and it was kind of like the beginning of thinking of ourselves very separately, which was never really like, it wasn't, you know, it wasn't
like we'd hoped that like we would each get like married someday, but it just like the right person like never showed up, and we're like, okay, I guess like
hadn't
just
yet.
The two of us for now, you know.
So this also like is just an important part of our story, because there's, you know, this history that we have as twins and making all these decisions together. And even though we were always separate people and had separate preferences and likes and dislikes and, you know, like, also, like ways of working. And,
but like the older we got, I feel like the more similar we got, just because of like doing the same thing for work and like spending so much time together. And like we had kind of gone back and forth between like moving out on our own for like a period and then like living at home and then like moving out again. And like each time we moved out, we were always like, we moved out together.
Well, and like we had this isn't necessarily pivotal to our story, but we did do a brief travel assignment in San Diego. And then we didn't like move back just to move back. We moved back because we were preparing to move away, you know, and then we came back, and then, you know, the housing market, all that. So then we bought a house, but so we had, you know, that kind of baked into our history. And then it was, you know, for the last really, I don't know, year and a half, 2 years has been this next level of ourselves, kind of really discovering who we are again individually as people, which it's been a very long time when I think about, you know, like our early childhood in school, having, you know, almost no contact during the day in school and stuff like that. So like
discovering this, like at this age, we're in our mid-30s, 35, to all of a sudden be like, oh
wait a minute,
yeah,
who am I?
Who am I like on my own?
Yeah.
You know? And so that's been, I think, a really big part of our story, especially in the last like year and a half.
Wow. That's so relatable too, because when I quit my nursing job, my hospital job, like I literally just like quit and had nothing behind me. I was in the nurse coach collective, but we hadn't graduated yet. And so it was almost like an identity, I don't want to say crisis.
Yeah.
Like, who am I outside of being a nurse? Like, that was my identity. When people ask you, who are you? You're like, oh, I'm a whatever, you fill in the blank of what your profession is. Like, that's just how our culture introduces ourselves. That's what people ask you.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, what do I even say? Like, I'm not working in the hospital. Am I still a nurse? Am I, so that whole identity piece.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine, especially like going back to when you were in kindergarten, how did that feel? Like, were you guys upset that you got pulled away and that you were in separate places? Or were you like, oh, this is fine, I don't really care?
I have a very vague memory that like I couldn't like describe to you like exactly what was happening. I just know that we were like in a classroom, and like I'm pretty sure it was like a time when Stacy had been helping me, and I just remember the feeling of being really upset and like really scared. And I'm sure it's when they were like,
yeah, Miss Mazzy, if you're listening,
yeah, thanks a lot,
But actually it was probably good. But like then we saw other twins in school get to be in the same class, and we were like, what a scam.
Yeah.
But no, I still remember we had to like write a sentence, and I had done my sentence,
and I like didn't know what to write,
and Sarah just like froze.
Yeah.
I guess we can now say like nervous system.
Dysregulation started at a very young age. Yeah.
She was in a freeze.
I didn't know what to do.
We didn't even have to use real words. It was kindergarten. All she had to do was make a squiggle and decide what it said later. But you know what? It was the beginning of a freeze state, I suppose. But yeah. And I think we felt, actually, maybe that was a little traumatic.
It 100% was. Like, when I think of that memory, like, it is like, maybe not even little T, probably like big T trauma. Like, that was traumatic. Yes.
Actually, it sounds like for you relied on Stacy or that sense of security. I mean, you guys were your sense of security. You were together all the time. So I can only imagine that it was traumatic, especially instead of twins being in the same class. So why do you think you got separated? Do you think it was because you were so dependent?
Actually, I think probably,
yeah. Well, and like
honestly, I think it was the right thing to do.
No, like it like 100% was. Like, I'm not saying it wasn't, but like the thing too, even like about like relying on each other, like our parents will tell us stories like before we can even talk. Like it's kind of a joke, but not really. Like, Stacy would do all the crying for both of us.
It wasn't a joke.
Like,
it was literal.
Stacy would cry for both of us to get the attention. Like she has always been like. We joke too that like, so I'm actually the older twin.
Yeah.
But it was a C-section, and I think they grabbed me out, and I was probably like, no. Like, I really thought Stacy was supposed to come out first. So yeah. She's really like the big sis.
But a lot of this stuff has come up because like we're both each working with our a coach like separately and in a group space. It's like a hybrid. And so revisiting some of the inner child stuff and thinking about like, how long has it been since we've been, and I don't want to sound like it's not pathologic to a point that we didn't have our own identities whatsoever, but
like we've always had like our own different interests.
Yeah. We've always had different interests. We've even like growing up and during like school time, we had different friends, but I think just like this idea of, revisiting and becoming like more of our own separate entities now. It's like, it takes you back to this idea of like, what were you like on your own, and defining yourself as just me and not we.
And a lot of that too, like when some of that with that I found with myself that I'm still like learning and having to like figure some stuff out. But like, I think like one example of that is especially when it comes to like style and like design aesthetic, because like me and like Stacy has like a very neutral like wardrobe, and I just kind of like naturally fell into that, and we like shared a lot of clothes. So like when she left, I was just like, I need color, and I like went and I bought like clothes and like bright colors and dresses and like hung a bunch of artwork around the house because I'm like a very creative and like expressive person. So like that for me has actually been very healing, I think, is to be like to do that and like not feel guilty about it.
Or like expressing more of yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And also, I just want to mention quickly, since we did, I don't think we actually said it, but like, so I do live in France now, which I know you know, but I didn't necessarily say that in the story. So I got married and moved to France a year and a half ago. So this was the other piece of like, not even living in the same country anymore.
Yeah, that is. So how did that, I mean, we could go into that since we're here right now. Like, how was that for both of you? So let's go back just a little bit. You said you met during, you got COVID, so you must have been going on a trip somewhere else. And then
we were in the south of France. And this was like literally days before they lifted the testing requirements to come home.
Sure.
And I had like, my family and us had like been all together. But I kind of had an inkling that I had COVID. And I was like, I don't know, so then we like, it's the day before we're supposed to leave and we take a test and mine turns right away. And I'm like, well, maybe it'll like maybe it just does that. And like, maybe it just like goes away and it just like didn't go away. So I was like, okay. And on the airline we were flying, like you had to wait 11 days to fly from being, from testing positive. So I like called my boss and I was like, hey, like, I guess I'm not coming back for, like a while, and Stacy stayed with me. So yeah, we had friends in France, and he ended up being like a mutual friend.
Yeah.
We didn't know about.
But long story short, like we didn't like our friends are in Paris, and we weren't gonna go to Paris on that trip, and so it was all kinds of things that happened, and then even like I just had these gut feelings that like when we started talking, I was like, this is going to like be something bigger. And I felt like I needed to ask permission.
Yeah.
You know,
like, and of course, like, go ahead. I don't care. Like, so what if you do? So what if you don't? I don't know.
And it was like something deep down.
I know. Cause
like,
I remember
it made no sense, but I
was
like knew
the kind of the day you were saying that, you're like, but what if we start talking and then I get married and move to France? And I'm like, well, that will be wonderful. Like, go ahead, So like she knew, like,
but it was also this idea that it's like, well, this new beginning for me, like, what if this is the end of us? And like, quite literally, it's not like the end, but it's like a different chapter, or it's the end of us as we knew it, living in the same house together, and like,
and being
together a lot of the time.
Yeah, because so let's back up just a little bit. So you were surgical techs together.
Then nurses.
And then you became nurses, and you both were like, okay, well, we'll just do this together. It was like, not like, sure, you're going to do this. I'll just do this. We'll just do it together kind of thing. So like, this is where I met you, was when you guys, I just thought like, gosh, they do life all together. Everything they've ever done has just been together. And so then when I started seeing this online, where like you were, with this guy, and then you were going to get married, and I was like, oh my gosh, what is Sarah going to do? Like, I remember thinking like, what's going to happen? Like, they've always been together. Like what
See with the popcorn.
I know.
Yes.
And I think, on that note, it's like, I think a lot of people had that same question. And it really, like, the last year, 2023, there were so many great things that happened, like in terms of, like, we did a lot of traveling, like our families were meeting each other, moving to France, and like my husband's a pilot, so that's a whole other set of like amazing circumstances that I found myself in for travel. And but also just like personally speaking, we had a couple of deaths in our family, and like there was this whole other dynamic going on behind the scenes, like navigating expat life. And it's like, it's hard to feel like, it's hard to not feel guilty for being far away when stuff happens. And so it's like, we had this thing where everybody is like kind of worried about Sarah, but nobody is worried about me. And
but then like when people see me, they would never ask how I was doing. They would always ask how Stacy was doing. So I'm like, okay, well, nobody cares about me. Everybody only cares about Stacy. But you were feeling like the other way.
But then on the flip side, it was like nobody was worried about me, but it was actually like, you know, going through like there's so much joy and happiness with like, you know, being in the honeymoon phase and learning how to be a wife and everything. But then there was this other piece of like, but but we're not together anymore. And
like, I have to cook dinner for myself now. Like this sucks.
And did I leave her? And you know, like knowing that there was definitely like some struggle on both our sides, but it's like for me as going back to kindergarten, being that you know twin that wants to going back to before that actually, you know, the one that wants to cry for you and help you with your homework and like do all this stuff. It was like, whoa, like nothing honestly could have prepared me for going through that. But there was also quite a bit of guilt with maybe even saying that I wasn't okay sometimes. Like I feel like I went through a ton of overwhelm and found myself like in and out of some freeze and shutdown, all while feeling like I need to deal with all these major life transitions, the good ones and you know, some that brought up a lot of sad feelings. And like, I didn't think it was okay to feel sad. And, you know, I also had some people kind of in my life implying that I have nothing to complain about. And like, everything's a fairy tale. And like on the outside, of course it looks like that. But it's like on the inside, we're complete whole beings with a whole range of emotions. And even if you have amazing things in your life, like,
that doesn't mean nothing else is. It doesn't mean everything else is perfect.
Yeah, or it doesn't mean that you're not allowed to like feel the full expression of your feelings. And so I think there was like a whole lot of going through that as well.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point too, because it's like people can see and they make judgments about what they think your life is like or what they see, you know, because for you, Stacy, too, you had the account. I think it was called Stacy in Wonderland.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know if you're still on there. I feel like the algorithm is so weird that I haven't seen much of it lately, but I loved following. But it looks like it is like a fairy tale, you know, like you are truly living this fairy tale life. So I could see where people would think that, but also if you really think about it, you've had to probably learn another language or try to learn another
working on it.
Like
French
just being in a whole completely new country. To learn how to be a human in a different place, because I'm sure here in the US things are a lot different than they are over there. So there's a huge learning curve for you as well. Plus you didn't have your family. Like you literally just moved across the country. Like cross country.
Absolutely. And like my husband is so supportive. He speaks amazing English. But for me, learning French, like I am taking classes and I'm doing a lot better than I was, but I think there was just a lot of overwhelm in the beginning and feeling like, you know, culturally over there it's just different and everyone's kind of like, oh, how's your French? How's your French? And you get asked that like 50 times in a week. And then you think there's something wrong with you, you know, because like, oh, I don't speak French yet, you know, or whatever. And so even just little things where it's like, okay, going to the grocery store. All right, this is kind of different, you know, or like learning to use new appliances. And it's like, you really do feel like you're starting all over and learning everything just as if you were a kid again.
Well, and I remember trying to make popcorn in her apartment and we're like, I don't understand, like this is supposed to be like a microwave, but like I don't get it. Like it doesn't work the same.
And so like your husband speaks English, but does his family speak English?
You know what? His sister speaks great English. His mom speaks a lot. Like everybody speaks more English than I speak French, but it's still, you know, definitely there's things that, you know, it's just not going to be the same level of detail or depth in some of the conversation. So
which I'm sure is hard too, you know, just trying to speak to his friends, his family, all of that, you know, with, you know, the language barrier, like that's So just speaking about this identity piece, which I feel like this is just such a great, conversation. So how do you both feel now as far as like, okay, now I am this person by myself, like trying to learn how to be my own person? Like, how has that transition been for each of you? I know, Stacy, you've kind of talked about it a little bit, but
yeah. I feel like, and I actually just had this like revelation like the other day. Like I was actually sitting next to Stacy yesterday, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, like I'm good. I'm okay. Because like there were like a lot of rough parts like last year, and I think for the most part, I'm like good with like knowing who I am. But then like I think kind of like anybody who's in entrepreneurship, that when it comes to the like business side, I'm like, what am I doing and like who I am with this. But I feel like I'm still learning that. So maybe like 75% there. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, and I listened to this podcast and then I sent it to Sarah, and it was about it was about boundaries.
I did listen to that one. I did, yeah.
But they talk about something that they term high functioning codependency. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think I am a recovering high functioning codependent person.
Before I even listened to it and Stacy told me the title, I was like, that's you.
But, I think when we think about, I'm not super well versed in this area, but this idea of codependency, and what they explained, because it was a therapist that was being interviewed on the podcast, was that often the person who finds themselves in this position isn't going to be the person anybody suspects, because they're usually the helper. They're the go-to, they're, but what it brought up for me was a lot of like, so it's like when you are this, in this, I don't know, like, I guess it's a label, but when you are this type of personality, it's like your ability to watch somebody else struggle, or what you perceive as struggle, is so limited. But you being dependent on the other person is basically like you being dependent on needing to help them, or needing them to be okay for you to be okay.
Yeah.
And so that was like, whoa, I listened to it, and one of the questions that she had asked her sister, because she went through this with her sister as well, and she's like, why do you think you know what she needs to learn? And I was like, whoa, okay, because like I think most of our whole lives has been like, I feel this duty to like make sure she's okay. But I never thought about that in terms of what need is that filling for me. That's not healthy. That's not healthy. Which
like honestly, like I did know, like when I had kind of like, okay, so like just to backtrack a little bit, I have actually always wanted to try living on my own.
She did.
But like it never made sense.
I never wanted to.
And Stacy never wanted to. So I was like, okay, well, basically the only way this is going to happen is just like one of us gets married, which it did, but because I always knew Stacy would always be like, if I could literally be alone forever. And she's fine. She's like full introvert. Yeah. Love my alone time. Stacy is growing into like liking alone time, but I knew that would never happen until like something basically like this happened, and it did. So for me, I was like, oh, this is great, like Stacy's not telling me that I have to like load the dishwasher or like clean the house. Like I can do whatever I want whenever I want. So there was even for me like a bit of like a honeymoon period of like that I'm not like, I don't think I unloaded the dishwasher for like a week. I feel like to like let stuff pile up and just like, I'm gonna clean the house whenever I feel like it. But then too, it's like, okay, learning how to be like a responsible like adult. I'm like, okay, I do actually have to like take care of myself. And like I kind of turn into the I've been thinking about this lately. It's the audio on Instagram, and I can't remember the actor's name. He's someone from SNL, and he's like, I'm just a baby. I can pay you in blocks, like whatever. And like that, like I turn into that when I'm around people who want to take care of me. Like, please take care of me. Like, I don't want to do it myself, So like something I've really had to like grow into and learn this year is like, okay, I have to actually like take care of myself now. Cause like literally no one else is like living with me, like to do it. So like that was,
and I've had to learn the opposite. Like I've had to learn the receiving piece.
Yeah.
Because I really come to terms with too, like how much I was overextending myself all the time. I mean, like that was a lot. And like also speaking to what you were talking about, the transitions of identity.
Yeah.
Like, so, you know, I don't work as a nurse in France. I would have to, you'd have to basically restart everything, get a new degree. They don't recognize anything in addition to the language. So, for me, like moving and then also like quitting my nursing job and doing everything at the same time, I really didn't, like, even though we had already had our business established and started, like, I really didn't have quite enough, I think, of an appreciation for the difficulty that would come with like this thing that gave me a lot of confidence. I didn't realize how dependent I was on, you know, the confidence from work and from people at the hospital and the validation and everything. And then it's like, yeah, you know this, but you go into entrepreneurship and it's like you need to be your own cheerleader. And we spent so much time being our own worst enemies and inner critics and always looking into like, okay, our future self and our goals, and we really didn't have enough of a focus in the beginning on the self-love, self-acceptance,
like the now
piece, like the present, the now, the learning to expand your capacity now and be okay with other emotions and feelings and all that kind of stuff, which is why like we're so big about that. We're so big about that now, but it was like even being in the coaching space, even being coaches, even having clients that we were helping with all these same things, like we had this big blind spot in ourselves for a while. And I think it was also like going through the big transitions at the same time. It was easy to see why we didn't really see it. Yeah. You know, but.
And I think too, like that, what I think something I didn't anticipate too about that transition was how it would actually put me into survival mode, even though I didn't like realize that was like what I was in. Cause I was like, okay, like, and I gotta go to work by myself and I gotta take care of the house by myself. And like, I'm literally just trying to like survive and, you know, like do by myself, which I've never done before. Like we've always either like lived with our parents, which our mom is like amazing at taking care of us, like honestly. And then even with Stacy, like I don't really like cooking. So like Stacy would be really proactive about like getting us to actually do the things we needed to do, like cooking and cleaning and like all that stuff. So it really like threw me, even though like, yes, there were parts of it that were great. I think underlying what I didn't realize is like how I would shift into survival mode, like once that happened.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many great points you put in there. Like just the whole identity piece and the codependency piece, I think is too, because and not even in twin relationships, but in anything. Like when you were talking I mean, for a long part of my husband and I mean, I've been with him since I was 15.
Oh, wow.
So there was so much codependency in our relationship, specifically me. I was very codependent on him. Like he was my safety, security, all the things, you know, and I depended on him so much, but then that almost causes the identity crisis when you are, wait, who am I outside of this person? Who am I in this world? Like, so that was a huge thing for me too, especially in going through this nurse coach program. I think is really just where it like blew up for me, where I was like, who am I outside of all of these labels that I've labeled myself as a wife and a mother and a, you know, nurse? Like, who am I truly at my core? It's like a huge piece.
Yeah. And I think that I also didn't realize, like, because we've always, again, like I've always been the more independent one. And I think it's just because of really me like liking my alone time that we just like kind of label it that. But I was like, no, like I also was super codependent on Stacy, and I still struggle with like whether it's, I mean, literally, even if it's like something like a journal prompt, I literally have to not be like, okay, well, what would Stacy say? I'm like, no, like I need to, like, what would I say? You know? So like,
but like, I mean, we honestly, and like, this is going to come as no shock to anybody who knows us well personally listening to this, but we enabled each other in so many ways for so long. But like, you know, from the outside, we were very high functioning. So it didn't really, you know, like, there's a lot of things like you didn't mention specifically, but you know, you talked about the things that you didn't like to do that I would do, but that went both ways, you know, not as much when we were kids and in school. And because that, like, I was always very like academically inclined and like, I'm going to help you study and I'm going to tutor you and make sure you get good grades, you know.
I mean, she's why I graduated nursing, so let's be honest, you know.
But you know, but there were definitely things that I depended on as well, you know. And so yeah, I think it's like seeing ourselves be separate and apart and picking that apart. And then also like the alone time, like discovering, okay, I think I do have some introverted tendencies, but then it's like if I have too much time and, you know, but really it's like I didn't realize how my relationship with myself was really lacking. And like, I don't want to use the term broken or whatever. That's not exactly what I mean, but like, I forget if I don't think we actually went into this, but this idea of like self-abandonment and like I had myself with these impossibly high standards and I didn't realize that there was so much like perfectionism that I hadn't recovered from. And I'm still seeing how that's a challenge, you know, and like that's a hindrance, honestly. You know, and there's a lot of feelings that can come with not meeting your own standards or saying, well, you know what, everybody else is actually like pretty supportive, but this is what I'm doing. And I know that I'm kind of the source of this, but it wasn't until pretty recently that I feel like I got the help I needed to change that. Or like I was always being hard on myself in terms of like things with our business or saying like, okay, you have to do this now, or, you know, you're failing if you're not doing this or whatever. And there was so much that I like didn't even realize that I had slipped into with this like perfectionism and, you know, like this inner critical self and like not wanting, you know, like not feeling, I guess, like at home with myself because I had this part of me who was so hard on me, you know, and I think that's just a common thing for a lot of women, especially, and definitely nurses, definitely entrepreneurs, is like, we're really, really hard on ourselves because we think that that's how we're going to get results. You know, like we think that we have to, or everything's going to fall to, you know, crap. And so like, I really had to learn that once I was by myself. I mean, I say marriage is what gave me independence.
And there's so much too in the coaching. You get inundated with so many things. You should do it this way. You should do it this way. Everybody has their own opinions, and you can, you know, like these quick fixes. If you just buy this, then I can help you do X, Y, Z. And then you feel like you need to have all these things and do all this stuff. And really, it's like, we really just need to be ourselves. Like that's one of the biggest things that I've learned throughout this last 3 years as well, is nobody is going to buy into me, or they might, but then it's not truly me. If I'm not being myself, when you are your most authentic self, that's when you're going to get your soulmate clients. That's when those people that are like really meant to work with you and that are going to set your soul on fire to work with them, you're going to find them because you've learned who you are and how you can serve in the world, not this person's method or that person's method or doing it like this. You know, it's your own. Like a huge piece in this entrepreneurial, you know, coaching realm is learning to be your own person and do what is, you know, we all have our own medicine to the world if we show up truly as our own selves.
And I think, well, it was interesting because we were just reflecting on this recently that it's like, you know, obviously coming out of healthcare, coming out of very traditional models and systems, it's like, you know, and classic stories of people that are like, well, this, all my tests look normal, or, you know, I'm not a candidate for this or for that, but like my life is like this really bothers me day to day, you know, and basically it's like the system that we've all come out of says you really have to be at these extreme ends before you get the help you need, or like you need to have this diagnosis, or, you know, you need to have something billable. But what I've realized, what we've realized, and I think you've said this very similarly, is like, the things that most people that are making their life suboptimal is not any of those things. Like some people, yes, if you have a health condition, of course, like I'm not dismissing that, but like the thing that a lot of our clients struggle with, the thing that we struggled with for so long, it was this idea that if you're not really in touch with yourself and what you really want and who you really are. And like, you know, you have these values but your life doesn't align that way. Or it's like, you say this is what you want and you want to spend your time this way, but you're not. Or, you know, your energy is getting drained in all these places. Like, those are actually the things that come up most often. And it's like, this isn't the thing that most people realize is like their issue, you know, and holding themselves back because of like being too hard on themselves, or holding themselves back because of other people's expectations. And I think that, like, you know, in the past, being surrounded by so many people who are so unhappy all the time, thinking that like, yeah, but the source of this and the source of your unhappiness, and just feeling like, okay, no, maybe your life doesn't fall into a diagnosis. Maybe it doesn't fall into, you know, something that's a label that our society says you need to fix this. But it's like, but it's like really mediocre sometimes. You get, you know, people get stuck in thinking they can't have anything that they really want because they're chained to something that's usually other people's expectations, you know, and whether that's falling into patterns of people pleasing or perfectionism or inner critic, like all of that is the deeper stuff, not feeling worthy. But the surface stuff is like, I really got to get out of this job, or I'm really not happy doing this, or, you know, like everybody thinks that I should be this because I'm, you know, I'm a leader and this is what they're looking, you know, but they don't realize I'm great at taking care of all of them, but I'm not taking care of myself. Like, I'm abandoning myself. It's like all of that really comes down to, though, like not living in alignment with, you know, with what who you really are and what you say you want.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was a huge reason why it took me so long to leave my job, that I knew I was not meant for anymore. Like, yes, there was a time and place when, you know, I was passionate about what I did and being a nurse in the hospital and felt like that was my purpose. But then over time, I just was, but I had everything. The outside looked great. I'm married to my high school sweetheart. We have 2 kids. We, you know, we have the house. We didn't have a white picket fence. We had a dog, and we had, you know, we just have like this American dream that you're like, that you grew up striving for whatever reason. But then it's like, well, deep down, like I was feeling stuck, or like I was made for more of this. But then it was those guilty thoughts of like, well, you have everything. Why do you feel like you shouldn't feel it this way? You should what you have, and you should just do it whether you're miserable or not. And so I think so many people get stuck in that. Well, like, I can't do that. You could do that, but I could never do that. I am just like you or anybody else. If I can do this, you can do this. Like, anybody can do this. And I think it's great to see too, you guys with all of your traveling. That's why I love to like watch you guys and stuff too, because you just take life and you're like, I'm going to travel. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go do this, because there is so much more to life than just working. 5 or, you know, whatever it is when you work in the hospital. So
and I love that point too, because I feel like that and a lot of thing that keeps people stuck is like the fear, and like also the belief that they can't do it, because like, and I don't think we brought this up yet on this call. I think we did like before, but how I'm like moving to New Zealand for I don't know how long, you know, like I'll be gone for like, I'll be out of the country for 5 months, not like in New Zealand that whole time, because I do have to like leave for a little bit for like visa reasons and come back. But like, there's so many people at the hospital that are like, oh, I wish I could do what you're doing. And I'm thinking like, well, you can. I mean, you totally can. Like, you just have to plan for it and like actually do it. But like, so many people feel stuck. And I think too, it kind of comes back to like the generation that raised us, where it's like they were raised to be in a job for 30, 40, however many years, and then you retire and you don't change careers, and like whatever you pick, like you stick with it. And it's like, that's not the case anymore. Like, people can switch careers now. People can go on vacation and love it and never come back. I mean, like, people do those types of things. But that's the thing, is like, they actually like, they do them and they figure it out and they take the action. But I think a lot of people are just like, don't want to take the action, and they're like too comfortable, and they're in too big of a safe spot, and it's too scary for them to think about actually like doing something like that.
Yeah, because your body, your nervous system, your subconscious is wired to keep you safe. Whether that's keeping you small, whatever it is, it's to keep you safe. And that fear of like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen if I leave. Like, we had friends that had never traveled outside of the country. just because the thought of leaving the country was so scary. And to me, I was like, well, but we traveled as my parents took us on vacation when I was 18 to Jamaica. I think was the first place that we really like traveled overseas for. And so I didn't grow up with this fear, but like for them, their families never traveled. Like travel just wasn't a thing. So for some people, if you aren't brought up like that, it seems so scary. And so your body's like, oh no, let's just stay over here where this is safe. Even though it's not exactly what we want to do, this is our safe. This is what we know. And so the body, anytime you want to do something different, your body's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So tell us where you guys are at right now. So I know Stacy are in Paris.
Yes.
You're in Cleveland now, but you're going to New Zealand. So how is this going to look so are you guys still coaching together?
So yes, we are. Yeah, we are. Yeah. I don't know why the pause like that. No, we are. Like, we still have separate clients, but we actually are going to be running a group together. So like figuring out time zone math.
Oh yeah.
Is interesting. Yeah. Which, I think we're like literally going to be on opposite ends of the earth.
Are, but we
figured it out.
Yeah, we have a few options for times, but so we do like Sarah mentioned, we have our separate one-to-one clients, but we're gonna do a group that is all around like healing your inner critic and cultivating like that self-love, and we're gonna do that together. And I think that the whole time with our business, we've always thought like, it'd be so fun to do more sessions together where we're like co-leading them. So this is our opportunity, and it's a topic that we're clearly passionate about.
So at first you weren't coaching together, like you've had your
like we've always like owned the business like together, like we have the LLC like together, like has always like been that, but we've basically always had like separate clients,
separate one-to-one.
We did we did run one.
Yeah, we ran a group together last year.
Last year, like around like social media. But with that too, I think we really only had 1 or 2 sessions where we were running it together, and we kind of like traded on and off for that. So.
But I mean, I think in terms of like our business together, what we really collaborate on is like what do we want to talk about in our content, or like we have a blog, and I'm primarily the writer for that because I just love writing, but like Sarah loves to do the graphics and the design, and so like we really blend our skills and talents in terms of like everything else that goes together. But we do primarily work with people one-to-one.
Awesome, very cool. And so Sarah, what is bringing you to New Zealand?
Lord of the Rings. No, partially. No, so like 8 years.
Yeah, we went.
I think 8 years ago we went, and like I have always loved
more than that.
Well, more than that.
2012 and 2016.
Yeah, 2012, 2016. But in 2012 was the first time we went, and I have like loved Lord of the Rings, and that was when the Hobbit movies were coming out, and I was like, wouldn't it be amazing if we like landed there and saw the midnight premiere like the day it comes out, because then we'd be like some of the first people in the world like to see it. And then we basically did like this pilgrimage to like all these filming sites for like Lord of the Rings, and so like that was like the real draw. But then like being there and like experiencing like the culture and like the people who live there and just like the way of life, I just like fell in love with it. And then we went back again in 2016, and like each time we went, I had always had this thought like, man, I would really love to try like living here one day. So like this has been like an underlying like thing, and I've actually like been dying to go back for a long time. But like with the travel that we did a lot of travel with our family, we did some stuff like just the 2 of us, but there were always these other destinations that we wanted to like go to. And admittedly, like New Zealand, it's like expensive to get there, and it is like a far like place to go to. But like as a family too, like when you travel and you're kind of like deciding like where you want to go, and we always had like new places on our list that we wanted to go to. So we just kind of like never made it back there. And then something that I have learned about myself is that if I want to reach a goal, I have to set like a really big, ridiculous like goal to do it. So like leaving the hospital, like, yes, I could have always said like, well, I'm going to go full time in my business and that's when I'm going to leave the hospital. But like in reality, like if I do that, then I'm always going to be waiting until I feel comfortable and stable in like the business, which like, who knows if I'll ever really like feel that. There's always going to be like underlying fear with that. So I was like, well, if I live in New Zealand, like I can't stay there, you know? So, so it's kind of like twofold. So yeah, I just have always wanted to live there. And I'm like, there's no perfect time for anything except that this actually is the perfect time. Like, yes, I own a house, but, I found someone to rent it while I'm gone. Like my parents are as healthy as they're ever going to be. Like I'm not committed to anyone right now. It's just me. Like I have the finances to do it. And I know too, I'm like, if I don't do it now, I don't think I ever will.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, okay, doing it. I also signed up for a half marathon in New Zealand.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
Have you done one before?
No, I'm not a runner. I am now.
Yeah.
She's becoming one.
I'm becoming one.
But
Yeah.
you are.
I am. Yeah.
To say you are.
Yeah, I'm a runner now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I signed up for that in March 22nd.
Yeah.
It's called the Middle Earth Halfling Marathon, and it actually runs through the Hobbiton movie set as like part of it. And that's another thing is I've known about this race for a while. And I've always wanted to run it, even though I'm not a runner. So like Stacy's husband,
I didn't used to be
a runner. Thank you. Yes. Thank you. I didn't used to be a runner. Stacy's husband is a runner, and he runs like
he's like extraordinary.
He's So like watching him was always really inspiring. And then like the thing with the hospital is like you always have to sign up for a vacation a year in advance, and I never knew when the sign up for this was. So like I just like never did it, and I'd like by the time I find out about it, it's like, well, we already have like another vacation, so like whatever, I'll get to it one day. So I'd already made the decision that I was like going to do this, and then I saw that pop up and I was like, okay, great, like I'm finally like gonna do this. But also like the underlying piece of that is that I've been wanting to like eat healthier and like get in shape and take care of myself. So like what better way to do that than just like sign up for a half marathon,
right?
No. I mean,
so do you know anybody over there?
No,
you're just gonna go in blind. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah.
See, do it anyways. Are you nervous about it?
I don't think so.
That's awesome. I love
it. Yeah. I will miss my parents, obviously. You know what? I'm not necessarily like nervous now. I think when it actually gets to it, I'll be like, oh my gosh, what did I just do? Like
people will come visit you, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, my mom and dad are already coming to, like they have their tickets. Stacy
actually we're coming in January.
Yeah, but like the biggest things that I know will be hard for me is not seeing my parents like every day, because I basically do. And then I have a hobby that has been like a true passion of mine this year that I discovered, which is bookbinding. And like it takes a lot of supplies, and like I'm not taking any of that with me. So like I actually like really am gonna miss that.
Yeah. It's not to say that you can't do it over there.
Yeah, I just have to buy everything. Yeah. So yeah, no, I think it'll sink in once it gets like closer. But I also think too, like, I think just because everything feels so right about it, and like everything has just worked out like perfectly, like leading up to it, that I don't think I'm really like that nervous. Like I would think like when I worked my last day at the hospital, if the next day I would have woken up and been like, oh my gosh, like, what did I just do? But I just had like this overwhelming sense of like, yeah, this is it. This is time. Like this is perfectly fine. I'm not, I'll figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, that's the beauty of having an online business.
Yeah.
Having, being a coach, and you're like, I can take clients anywhere.
Yeah.
You literally just need your phone. I mean, a laptop obviously is nice, but yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. So at this time, in this moment, because I ask everybody on the podcast this, what do you feel is your soul purpose? And you each can answer this, because obviously you're your own people.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. I don't know if I know. I think I'm still figuring it out. I think creativity has a lot to play into that, because I'm a very creative person. Probably helping other people discover that eventually will be something. I'm still trying to like figure out how that plays into like my end of the coaching business. I also low-key love helping people quit their jobs.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You know, and you have a client who is in particular very creative. And, you know, like one of the things
that she does eventually want to like leave her job. So actually I feel like that's pretty much everyone. I mean, that like that actually, it's funny because like I don't specifically market like, hey, I'm going to help you quit your job and like, like I can never promise anyone that I'll help you quit your job and find a new one and like make the same amount of money. Like that's not like the type of coach really, but actually like the 3 clients specifically, 3 of them that I'm working with, they all do eventually like either want to leave and find another job within the same profession or just like change jobs entirely.
But also one in particular is very creatively focused and motivated. So I think that it's not an accident.
No,
you know, that you're that you're working together.
I feel like those people find us. It's like because that's the energy that we put out. That's what I mean, because I think you post about it. You might have a separate account though for that. Right?
I do.
But it's like people I'm sure see that and they're like, oh, that's like I love that, you know, and that resonates with people. And so that's how
And for me, I mean, I'm like, oh yeah, same question. But honestly, I just feel like when I reflect back on like my whole life, and you know, even thinking about how I've had all these perfectionist tendencies for like literally I think I remember myself as a child in school and you know like being so hard on myself and not feeling like I was the like my own safe space and person, like kind of like you were talking about realizing you can do all this stuff on your own, like you know discovering that you can be the resource for yourself, you know, and I think just going through these transitions and then realizing that actually like this self-compassion piece, the self-acceptance, self-love, like is the only thing that I think has been, I mean, it's not the only thing that's been transformative, but it's the foundation behind all of it. Like we can talk about having really like amazing goals and visualizing your future self and, you know, like getting out of autopilot, all of which, like, you know, changing your life, all of which I'm a firm believer in. But I think that it's like this piece that feels so foundational to me that I really don't think is maybe talked about enough, is that like, it is okay to love yourself. It is okay to accept yourself as you are. And you are not going to just like live on your couch forever and do nothing, you know, but it's like, there is a better way than the pain, quite honestly, of never meeting your own expectations. Like that's super painful, you know, and it's something that I think it's like, you don't realize when it's always there, you know, that voice, when it's always there, you don't realize that it could be different sometimes, you know, I mean, I do now, but like, I think, and you don't realize how much it's actually hurting you and holding you back rather than being motivating. And this is also something like I've seen with my clients. And as we've talked about, like, this is why we attract people who have struggled like we do or we did. And I just feel like, oh my gosh, you know, like people do not deserve to have those type of negative feelings about themselves and to struggle. And like, it's always people that are so amazing, like all these women that are so amazing that I'm like, oh my gosh, but like, it breaks my heart that you don't see yourself, you know, like the way I do, or the potential or whatever. And it's like recognizing how much that can hold us all back, has really become my biggest like why and biggest motivation, I think. And it's like, it doesn't have to always hurt like that. And that's not going to be the way to what you want. Like, and it sounds a little cheesy to say, but it's like, no, love is the thing that heals. Like that is the thing that is going to make you feel so much better. That's the thing that's going to help you ultimately feel at peace with yourself in spite of whatever is happening. Because if you're constantly moving the finish line, like in the middle of the race, You're never going to be at peace with yourself. You're never going to feel like you're free. And that doesn't matter. And, taking you with you. So it's like, you can quit your job. You can move to a new country. You can have your own business. And like, but this is exactly what happened to me. It's like, but I was still like torturing myself with all of these, like self-critical thoughts and expectations. And I would never let the hospital and healthcare off the hook for all the damage they've caused everybody and burnout. But at the same time, there is this huge expectation that we all have, kind of, that like, well, if I go somewhere else, things are going to be different, and we kind of want to deny that piece of taking ourselves with ourselves. And there is so much healing that you can do for yourself so that you can actually be your biggest cheerleader, be at peace with yourself, and not be dependent on, trying to control external circumstances, which you can't really do anyways, and so there is just so much to gain from that, I think. And that's why I think that's my purpose, is to help people like that.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. And like the thing that just popped up when you were saying that is the whole, and I think you kind of talked about this before, that travel, like a lot of times people are like, oh, let's just get to the next thing. What can I plan? Because your life feels so like the mundane you were talking about, it's like, okay, I'm going to plan this trip. And then, you do the trip and then you come back and you're like, oh gosh, I just want to plan another trip. And so then all you do is think about the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. You're not like enjoying who you are and who you truly are and can be. You're just looking for the next thing that's going to fix you. And you're just, so it's like you're losing your power. You're giving your power away. Get back and be like, how can I help myself? How can I make this the best life possible right here, right now?
Yeah. And we did that for years.
We did. Yeah. I mean, we totally used travel as like a way to run away, which, I mean, it was a great way to run away, but like, and we did kind of have that realization. And I think it was probably while we were in like the collective and like learning about the coaching, is like, it's great. Like, we will probably never stop traveling, because at baseline, we do love exploring and going to new places, but like, you do have to be happy where you're at. And that doesn't necessarily like, not necessarily in your home, but like in yourself. Like, you have to, like Stacey's saying, like, you have to find that happiness and that love, like within yourself.
And also it's like, just the small thing I wanted to point out was that people were constantly glorifying us for like the trips and things that we were taking, but it's like, it's really just the next level of living for the weekend. If you don't address what you're avoiding. Like, if you're, like you said, if you're just always moving on to the next thing, and you're, like, it means you're avoiding something in your present. And it took us a long time to figure out what that was, and also figure out that we had a cry for help that nobody could hear. And
that we also didn't even realize for us was even a cry,
And once again, just this idea of the validation and people's expectations, and people were constantly telling us that we were living their dream, and we were always like, it feels so terrible to think that they think they can't do that too.
Because you guys had an account together on Instagram. Your travel stuff was on all the time. You had so many like cool places and all the things. So is that still a dream to like, because I know you talked about it briefly at first, like be a travel influencer and things like that?
I think it's evolved to the point now, especially with coaching, where I think we want it to be more of like a retreat type of thing.
We'd love to lead retreats,
but also like, who knows where we'll be at, and like I'll never say never.
But I think too, like, one of the things that we've realized, especially that I realized as a result of writing our blog, because it's only about 6 months old, but we have a section called Wellness Around the World, or maybe it's Well Traveled. I forget. I think I changed the name.
It's Well Traveled.
But the lessons that we learn, like, travel is a great vehicle and a means for getting you out of your head, getting you, into being super present, because everything is different, and you take it in with new eyes, and it's just like like, we don't want to discount the fact that it can be very transformational. And so,
and also solo travel, like you will learn so much about yourself when you are
but
traveling by yourself.
But also too, not just reporting on destinations, even though like that's fun and it's fun to share the pictures and stuff, but it's like the bigger lesson that you learn from going there. So like, of course we want to share beautiful places with people, and actually like we are huge believers that travel can be a healing modality if you are intentional about it and tapped in. Now, I mean, like, no offense to anybody, but we're not talking about going to an all-inclusive resort and, you know, drinking every day. Like,
But they have a place, sure. Yeah, but like that's
But like, you know, travel in itself and being away from, you know, being thousands of miles or hundreds of miles or even just a little bit, like having some kind of physical distance can give you a perspective like nothing else if you take it.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That was a great way to end that. That was really good.
Thank you.
Yeah. So for anybody at home that is listening and watching, I mean, I will put all of your info below, but if you want to just tell them maybe a little bit about like what you do, how they can reach you, all that good stuff.
Yeah. Of course. So yeah, on Instagram, our Instagram is Sara and Stacy.
Without an H. SARA.
I'll put it below for
sure. Okay, she's linking. Our website is livewellandwhole.com. And so yeah, actually that we've got tons of information on there. Our blog lives there. Very focused on like the inner work, lots of articles on there. We even have like a whole self-coaching series that's like a mini mindset makeover that's designed to do over the course of 8 weeks. We have open spots in each of our one-to-one spots.
And we're launching a group.
And we're launching a group that we plan to start in November. A 6-week self-love kickstart where we're really going to address like inner critic, coming home to yourself, boundaries, without guilt, confidence, like that kind of thing. And that's our newest piece.
Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you
for having us.
It's lovely chatting with you guys. Oh, thank you for listening to this episode. I hope you loved listening as much as I loved recording. Each and every conversation that I have here on this podcast just lights my soul on fire. I love having conversations where we explore and challenge our ways of thinking. So if you've resonated with anything here and you're looking for more, please connect with me on Facebook in my Soul Deep community group, which is free. I'm also offering all my listeners a free month in my Soul Deep Connection membership. I have poured my heart and soul into this membership, bringing you resources to help you grow into the best and truest version of yourself. I've used my knowledge and experience as a nurse, combined with my knowledge and experience as a coach, breathwork facilitator, and somatic embodiment guide. This library consists of breathwork, kriyas, and other resources and modalities that will help you learn about and give you the healing tools to live the life you've been dreaming about, and to help you find your true passion and zest for life again. This library of resources is vital for everyday maintenance. And on top of the library of resources, there are live monthly calls, ranging from breathwork, kundalini, full moon or new moon circles, as well as guest speakers on a variety of different topics from decluttering to marketing to sisterhood and all things healing and wellness. So make sure you join today to get you back on track to living that thriving life that you are longing for. Remember, the first month is free, and my hope is that you find so much value that staying is an absolute no-brainer. It really is everything that I was looking for as I started my journey, and so much more. I truly hope to see you inside my community. And if you haven't yet, please follow me here and on social. Like and subscribe, and make sure to share your favorite episode with your friends and community. And when you do, make sure to tag me in that post. If you tag me, you'll be entered into a drawing for that month where you can win a free one-to-one session, breathwork or coaching session with me. All the links will be in the show notes here below. Until next time, Soul Deep fam, and in the words of my dear friend Mary Lacey Banks, I'm holding you so tight in a thought hug.